Australians and New Zealanders come here for the dawn service on the Gallipoli Peninsula to remember the events of 25 April. People, not just here but across the world, Australians and New Zealanders gather at dawn in countries around the world. The people who come here, they stand in respect and the moments before dawn. And as the sun rises, there is the exact moment when Australian and New Zealand troops landed on the peninsula, with the people standing there in the first rays of the dawn sunlight.
There's nothing in space. There's a silence deep within. We raise
We're here for Anzac Day.
We're here to commemorate the lost soldiers and Anzacs.
It's so big, it's where the whole country comes together to remember our people that we lost. And
Always wanted to come here.
Anzac Day has always been important and it's a big part of our history, and I go to every Anzac Day.
And my grandpa was in the war, so it's a very special event for me.
Both my grandparents died here. I think one was from wounds and the other one was sickness.
The 25th of April 1915 was the first time that Australian and indeed New Zealand soldiers in large numbers went into battle in a foreign war. This is the first time that thousands, tens of thousands of Australian and New Zealand men had left their own country to fight in a European war, in a Great War, as it was called. And it was the first time that thousands, tens of thousands of these men were killed, were wounded. But many people at the time saw the First War as a chance for Australia and New Zealand to make a name for themselves, to be known as an independent nation in the world affairs. 60,000 Australian soldiers died in that war, more than 20,000 New Zealanders. All of them were volunteers. No one forced them to come here. We choose the 25th of April as a day to commemorate all the people, and not just Australians and New Zealanders, all those who served and died in war. We commemorate the dead, we look back at history. For many people in Australia, they had relatives who served in the First World War. I had family who served here at Gallipoli and in France and Belgium. Often people come here to look and think on 25th of April to understand themselves. Some of that identity is here. Many Australians see that, or feel that the 25th of April was the day that Australia became a nation, that we took part in a world event. We matured, we grew up on that day. Probably every soldier at some time was scared. The fighting here was very difficult. It was very different from France and Belgium. The fighting was very close. Here the trenches were so close together you could hear the enemy talking. Whereas in France you may be 800 metres away from the enemy trench. Here 2 or 3 metres in some places, 20 metres. There was a lot of pride. The soldiers, they couldn't run away because there's an ocean behind them.
103 years ago, we can reflect on the optimism of the commander of the New Zealand and Australian Division, Major General Sir Alexander Godley, who wrote that only bullets could make his division better. By better,
Australia is a nation of immigrants, but people come here to understand their own identity. Who are we as Australians? And part of what Australia is lies here in this cemetery and in the hills above us here in Turkey.
I appreciate the history of the war. I think it's beautiful that after everything that's happened, like with the war, that we have now found peace. And I think it's beautiful that the Turkish and the Australians and New Zealand people can come together and move forward. I feel it's kind of surreal. Like, it doesn't feel real. I'm so blessed to be here. The Turkish are just so welcoming. It's amazing. Like, just to think what has happened here and how much blood and everything and lives that were lost here, and the fact that I'm now standing here 100 years later, it's amazing. That I'm so grateful.
Very emotional because of the sacrifices not only the Australians made, but also the Turkish people made as well. You know, it's just a very sad thing that it happened at all. If you talk to, I would say, most Australians about who have we fought against, they would say Japanese, the Germans. That's probably about it. The Japanese and the Germans. We didn't really fight against the Italians. You know, they didn't want to. You know, and same with the Turks. It's like, oh, they just got mixed up in the war accidentally, like we did. So it was not like we ever hated.
I once was here with a good friend of mine, an Australian, who was born in Italy. He was Italian when he was 9 years old when he came to Australia. He had no knowledge of. For him, Gallipoli was a town in Italy. There was a town called Gallipoli. Now, but he came here and we walked for 10 hours, walked over the battlefields. And at the end of the day, he sat there on the beach at Anzac Cave and he said, I now have a greater knowledge of what it is to be an Australian. He's a very proud Australian himself, but he learned something. People come here, often people may come here not as a pilgrimage or some almost religious experience. It's something to do, it's a tourist thing to do perhaps, but they may not come here they may not have read any books or had any real knowledge. But they go away after even just a 4-hour tour, they go away thinking a little bit more. They've learned a little bit about history, they've learned a bit about the past, but they've learned something about themselves as well. And that, for the Australians and others, New Zealanders who come here, that is the lesson of Gallipoli. It is learning about the past and the present. A very strong connection between 1915 and today.
Those heroes that shed their blood and lost their lives, you're now lying in the soil of a friendly country. Therefore, rest in peace. There is no difference between the Johnnies and the Mehmetstos, where they lie side by side here in this country of ours. You, the mothers, who send their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and are in peace. After having lost their lives on this land, they have become our sons as well. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk.